Yeah, welcome back. This is Zume Lesson 7, and it will be a shorter than normal lesson because in addition to introducing you to the MAWL tool, MAWL, it's an acronym for Model, Assist, Watch, and Leave. In addition to learning this tool, they're going to want you to spend a time together in a 3/3 group. Hopefully, that you've assembled to do it 3 weeks in a row, so that they can all get a taste of how simple but powerful the 3/3 format is. And so, hopefully, you've done one last week, and now you'll do one this week together as a group, and then next week you'll do one together, and it'll be a short lesson next week as well, when it talks about leadership cells. Now, today in the mauling tool, it uses an example of learning how to ride a bike. I don't know about you, but I remember the days of learning how to ride a bike, and in order to never forget, I have a tooth right here that's broken off. That is a result of my head going down on the handlebars when I ran into a tree when I was learning how to ride a bike and still hadn't quite mastered braking. And so when I hit that tree, it didn't move much, but I did. My head did, and crashed right down on the handlebars and broke that tooth off. The idea is when we see somebody ride a bike, I mean, I remember as a kid, I was so excited. I said, I got to learn how to do that. That looks like a lot of fun. And it allows me to go lots of places and cover large amounts of distances. So I was thinking, man, that'd be great to learn how to ride a bike. And in my case, it wasn't my dad that showed me how. It was my cousins. And we had to get-togethers, and they had their bicycles there, and they were riding around. And I said, "Can I try?" And fortunately, I had a cousin with a girl's bike, which is easier to get on, and so I remember they had modeled basically a riding to the point that I wanted to learn how to do that, and then somebody actually held the bike while I got on the bike, and actually pushed it to get me going. Of course, I didn't make it very far until I crashed. And they knew that was going to happen, so they helped me get up and not give up, but get back on. And they walked along a little longer with me to keep my balance. And I started pedaling, and then I was able to go further every time. And I got a little bit too confident. And of course, that's about the time you realize, I haven't figured out how to get on this by myself or off of it by myself, so how do I stop without falling over and crash again? So that's sort of the process that they're going to use in this video. Let's watch the video together, and let's see. Why is this not showing? There it is. So let's watch this video. It's called The Training Cycle for Maturing Disciples.
Welcome back to Zume Training. In this session, we'll learn the training cycle that helps disciples go from one to many and turns a mission into a movement. Have you ever learned how to ride a bicycle? Have you ever helped someone else learn? If so, chances are you already know the training cycle. It's as easy as model, assist, watch, and leave. Think back. Before you ever rode a bicycle, you probably saw someone else ride one first. That's modeling. Model, assist, watch, and leave. Modeling is simply showing someone else an example of how it's done. When a child first sees someone else riding a bike, they get the idea right away. Modeling is like that. It doesn't have to be done often, and usually it only needs to be done once. Think back to that first bike ride. Did you want to just watch? Or were you excited to get on and give it a try? What if nobody ever gave you the chance? Too much modeling can actually hurt the training process. Modeling is about showing someone just a little and then giving them a try. So what happened on that first bike ride? Did they just give you the bicycle and walk away? Probably not. When most people learn how to ride a bike, someone is right there for the first few pedals, walking alongside and keeping you on track. That's assisting. Model, assist, watch, and lead. Assisting is allowing a learner to practice a skill but making sure the falls aren't too hard. Assisting takes longer than modeling, but not too long. It requires some hand-holding, some direction, and some coaching, but it's just about passing on the basics. It's not about getting someone to perfect. It's about getting them to pedal. Can you imagine someone running alongside you as you started to pedal fast and gain some speed? They wouldn't last long, and you'd never learn to keep your balance. Assisting is about getting someone going and allowing them to steer a little on their own. And when they start to move, they're actually modeling for next learner on the way. Even when no one else's hands are on the bike, it doesn't mean you're all alone. Usually there's someone keeping an eye out, but from a distance. That's watching. Model, assist, watch, and lead. Watching is influencing a learner until they're competent in their skill, all without having to step in and take control. In bike riding, someone can get up and going fairly quickly, but that doesn't mean they know all the rules of the road. Watching is about making sure someone's going to be safe, even when no one's around. Watching is about making sure not just that someone knows what to do, but also that they'll do it even when no one's looking. In this phase of the training cycle, the learner will grow and teach others how to grow, so they teach others how to grow, so they teach others how to grow. Disciples who make disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples, all the way down to the third and fourth generation. Watching is about making sure a learner matures and is not just willing but also able to help others. Watching takes a while. It may be 10 times as long as modeling and assisting combined. It may be longer, but the wait is always worth it. Eventually, the rider just rides the bike. That's what leaving is all about. Model, assist, watch, and leave. Leaving is like a graduation. A student becomes a teacher, a worker becomes a co-worker, a disciple becomes a friend. In bike riding, the one who teaches you to ride doesn't go along for every ride you take. At times they may ride with you, at times you ride separately, or with others, or alone. Leaving is about giving one last gift to someone you love, the gift of freedom. Leaving is about equipping someone to go where you've already gone, but also encouraging them to go where you haven't gotten to yet. Model, assist, watch, and lead. The training cycle. From one to many. From a mission to a movement.
Okay. I hope you'll learn from my mistakes on this. The reason this tool is here is it's very common sense. In most other fields, but for some reason when it comes to disciple making, it wasn't common sense, at least to me and Isaac. When we came back from the training with Curtis, we thought, well, the first thing we're going to do, Isaac said, let's talk to all the pastors in Bupe that I know, and so I said, well, that sounds like a good idea. So we had a training center where we had a room big enough that we could have pastors in, and we could feed them and even house some that came from out of town, and then offer the training. And so we did it like in a week-long, more of an intensive, but it was every day for a week, basically. And so we went to the pastors, and the pastors loved it so much that they said, boy, you need to train other pastors. And so we got a hold of the rest of the pastors in town that missed the first training and offered it to them and did it to them, and they also liked it. And we assumed that because they liked it, that they were actually putting it into practice. Wrong assumption. And about a year and a half later, after we had trained whole denominations up in Tomley, as large as 45 people at a pop. Of course, by the time you pay for transportation and the materials and food and lodging for guys to go through the training, of course, that was very costly. I estimate that probably over that first year and a half, we spent $5,000 or $6,000 just in expenses of training, probably 150 pastors. But we were feeling good about it because we knew that every one of those pastors were putting it into practice. Wrong again. And so Curtis sent somebody over to check on us, and we had told him about all these pastors we were training that were really excited about it. And he said, well, how many of those pastors you train are implementing? And Isaac and I looked at each other, and we assume they're all implementing, I mean, they really like the training. And, he said, why don't you call around and find out who's implementing and who's not? So Isaac and I said, so he took a bunch of people, and I took a bunch of people, and both of us called and called and called and called. And you think we could find even one pastor that had implemented even one thing? No. And believe me, I didn't laugh. I was frustrated at myself for allowing that to happen. Because that was a lot of money wasted. A lot of the Lord's money wasted. And I felt ashamed. I should have known better, but for some reason, by the way they were responding, I was just assuming they were putting into practice what they had learned. So the MAWL tool helps prevent that. How? Well, you're actually going with them and you're modeling it for them. And so for example, you could teach them in the morning on your training, and this is what Isaac and I had to do differently because of the training. Was we had to determine that we were going to train in the morning, and in the afternoon and evenings we were going to MAWL. And what that meant was we'd have to bring some experienced disciple makers along and we also kept the training groups much smaller so that we didn't have to bring too many people along and keep these MAWLing groups small. Because if you're too big, then they'll be intimidating to people. But so we usually hook up one person that can model how it works, and then assist somebody to actually try it themselves. And so if they learned how to do the blessed prayer and the objective of prayer walking, and they knew also how to do the importance of looking for a person of peace and receptive person, and maybe even how to share the gospel if you got the opportunity. Then we go out and we start prayer walking and bless people with the best prayer, try to identify people of peace and share the gospel with as many people as we could. The first person we come across, the person that's experienced, models how it works, just like what Isaac talked about in class. And then the next time, we said the next person you come, now it's your turn. And so you would ask a person to try it, and that way you can verify to what extent they understood what you were teaching. They might not have even understood what you were trying to explain to them. I know your training is much better than ours, so they surely understood. Now, you'd be surprised how much. And the only way you know what they understand is by actually asking them to practice it. And so you're there to watch, and if they run into trouble, you can step in and relieve them and help them, assist them in making sure that it's modeled and done correctly. And so for the first I mean, we went mauling every afternoon and evening, and we did training in the mornings. And we found that if people experience the tools that we trained them in the morning working for them during the practicing time, then they're much more likely to put them into practice. And so our implementation went up to 25%. And that's about what Jesus said would happen. Remember? When in the parable of the four soils, he said, when you sow liberally on all soils, but that which lands on the path will be eaten by birds. That which lands on rocky soil will sprout, but die and wither because it can't send roots down into the soil. And then that which sprouted, but then had weeds come up and choke out all the nutrients from the soil and as well as water, and it died as well. But there was only one of the seeds that fell on fertile soil that produced 30, 60, even 100-fold. And so what we were trying to do at this point through mauling is find the 30, 60, 100-fold people. And it's very similar to the concept of person of peace. However, they can be different. They can be the same, but they can be the different people. For example, the person of peace is like more of a gatekeeper that opens up the door to many people within his household, but may not be the one that actually produces fruit. Somebody else that he introduces you to may be the person that actually is the multiplier, where the four soil person is a multiplier. I mean, he takes it in, he multiplies 30, 60, 100-fold in fruit. And, of course, we want four soil people, but sometimes we have to find persons of peace first to get to those four soil people. And so Jesus was telling us, don't expect the majority of the people to say yes. I mean, a vast majority will say no, not be interested whatsoever. So keep that in mind. Jesus actually told that parable when they came back from the sending them out on one of the look for persons of peace adventures. And we think it was like a 6-month period. And I'm sure they were discouraged because of the vast majority were not interested. But Jesus was just trying to say, this is common. This is the way it's going to be. You sow your seed, but you turn around and look behind you for the seed that lands in good soil, and that's where you invest your time, helping that good soil person produce as much fruit as possible. Now, if you do it that way, you'll be much wiser and you'll save a lot of money. And you'll be less frustrated. It can really disillusion you, especially working with pastors, because you go to their houses and then their walls are lined with certificates from all the trainings they've gone to. But if they do what they did to you, they're just certificates that mean nothing. They've been to the class. It shows that all these things that all this knowledge they've gained, but just more and more proof that knowledge without implementation is worthless. And so learn on my dollar, learn on my wasted money, and always MAWL. Now, this should be common sense, because when if you go to college or go to school to get a higher level degree, like maybe it's in nursing, or let's say even a doctor. Let's say I'm going to learn to be a doctor. Well, you don't go and take a bunch of tests on what information that you studied in the book. I mean, that's part of it. But a bulk of what you're going to do is you're going to spend a lot of time watching a master surgeon do surgeries. And then that master surgeon is going to spend quite a bit of time watching you do surgery, so make sure that you don't hurt anybody and that you're doing it properly before they'll let you actually go and do the surgery on your own, because you're proficient enough and they're confident that you will do as little damage as possible because you have become a master at the surgery, at what you've learned in that college. And really, about any skill, I know in Ghana we built a studio and enough buildings to know that when we bring in electricians, they would have their apprentices. Well, what was the apprentice doing? The apprentice was watching the master electrician do it. And then at some point, the master electrician was letting the apprentice do it with him watching every move. And then he was letting the apprentice do it without him maybe even being there. He might go up and pull the wires and hook everything up, and I'll come up and I'll check and make sure everything is properly connected before we flick the switch to electricity. And so, and then that's how it happened. That it was that model, and then assisting them to make sure they're doing it correctly, and then watching them by letting them go and then checking their work before you actually let them leave. Or some people, instead of using the word leave, they use the word launch in their own business or their own ministry of making disciples. So the idea is they eventually come to a point where they know it well enough that they can get an apprentice and they can start their own business. And that process is used amongst masons, amongst plumbers, amongst teachers, amongst nurses. I mean, anything you do, you need to be mauled. So when it comes to discipleship, let's learn. It's important that we maul, and we will save ourselves a lot of disappointment and headaches along the way, and a lot of wasted expenditures of money, assuming people are putting it into practice everything that we're training them, because we're such good trainers, of course. But please learn from our mistakes. Now, again, like I said, this video is really short because they want you to go ahead and practice doing another 3/3 group, and I think they even have at the end down here, they want you to use Mark 5, 1 through 20 for your 3/3 discussion. And they want, preferably if you use the same group for 3 weeks in a row, and just do 3 different scriptures, and they'll give you next week's scripture as well. And so I'll point that out next week as well. And so this week, just keep in mind the mauling. So as you're doing, as you're going out and practicing and learning, you're probably going to need somebody to maul you. But it might be good to, even from the beginning, bring somebody along with you so that they can be mauled at the same time, because we need to get into practice of what it takes to maul people. Model, assist, watch, and leave. It's a progression, or watch and launch. It's a progression that we will be very wise to use. Blessings. I know this is very short, but that's all there is to this lesson. Thank you.